Thank you all for being here. Am I audible? Yeah. Yes, okay. Very, very excited. This is actually the second edition of Design Unplugged at the Quorum. We started in December, then the pandemic happened again, and all of that. But that's behind us. We're here. We actually have a drink in our hand. And a very warm welcome to Gaurav Gupta, an old friend who I've known, I think, for what, 10, 12 years now? Something like that. But we'll come to that part later. I hope you've had a chance to see his film that's running over there. It's called Name is Love. And I actually wanted to start with that. This was the digital show during the pandemic in 2020. And you started with this. I just want you to talk to us about why you chose this medium and to present your work in this manner and the value that it holds, because I think this film in a way sums up a lot of who you are and what you do.
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me here. This film is called Name is Love. This was the first digital fashion film show of India. This was India Couture Week that happens in July usually, and we opened the India Couture Week with this film. And this film is all about, we were all also low during the pandemic, and it was all like, everybody was lost and everybody was going through so much emotional turmoil, and so much of all of that was happening. We just wanted to bring in a sense of hope and a sense of togetherness. And then we, in our mood board for the film, for the showcase, we were like, okay, let's, I've always fought for LGBT rights and for gender inclusivity, etc., etc. Like I'm one of the one of the few guys who'll actually go for pride marches and things like that in India. So what we did was we actually started casting real people for this film. We have a real life gay couple, a couple from Kota and Haryana. We have a real life transgender male, a guy who's going to university in Delhi and is 18 years old and is really out and really open, and a real life lesbian couple from Gurgaon, a transgender female supermodel. So and then somebody with vitiligo. We wanted to showcase how new cultures are a part of the mainstream Indian culture today, and not like highlight them as isolating them, but showcase them in a way that we are celebrating what they stand for. So that's where Nafkira, sitting right here, wrote her poem, and it's her voice in the film as well, which is Name is Love. And she was also in the film. And it's the whole film is about love, and our couture and clothes just happen to be on all of them. And we celebrate love of all types, love with yourselves, love of different genders, age, body, color. So we kind of made it about everything, not highlighting a particular, and none of it was like an issue. It was all like, it was more like a celebration.
I like to use the word inclusivity, right? And I think
that's what it was.
Yeah, but that's been like a...
But it was not
but the
thing is, inclusivity was, the thing is, I feel like that it's become like a trend that, okay, you need to be inclusive, and now every brand wants to do that,
I actually wanted to, get to that.
Yeah, but we were just like, we have always had that. A lot of times people ask me, like, your clothes are so form-fitted, etc., etc. But I have had triple extra large clients from Middle East who just rock it in the clothes, or from anyone to, it's the person, that all kind of body shapes, sizes, sexes, we keep celebrating them. We just dressed Violet Chachki, who won RuPaul's Drag Race for her American tour. The drag who went from India, Sushant, to RuPaul's Drag Race, wore our gown as well, and was like, so there's been, and I did Keshav Suri's wedding gown as well. So there's a lot of new, we've been involved in this whole gender conversation, and I think fashion and film and all of these things are very important to just reflect that on what is actually happening in the society as well.
But that's why, because a lot of, I mean, there is this, it's become a trend now to include different types of people, different body types. Body positivity has become quite the trend. But very often we see that you'll have like one of many models on the ramp or in a campaign, right? Which almost seems like, okay, you're trying to tick a box.
Tokenism, yeah, it's like tokenism.
Right.
But I think that's how it starts. Like, let's say if somebody does everybody being big size, then you're like, then also you'll point it out as like, well, that's also, they're trying to do that. But I think that's how culture starts getting changed. Like today, none of us sitting here find it abnormal for a big size woman or a man being in a show. Now it's more and more about, so I think it all kind of boils down to the person who's actually cutting it. I think the language of cool has changed in the whole world right now. Like it changes these brain cells in everybody, and that's what inclusivity is doing. I think the next thing is ageism, for sure. Because now it's like for sure, because everybody is like, I think it's like, and women's sexuality of especially older women. I met this really interesting woman the other day who was, talking about erotic literature from the past 1,000 years, etc. And I think it's just about going infinite and killing all the taboos or whatever perception of taboos we might have in our head.
So you've also said, I don't know if I'm quoting it right, but you say that it's not about the ideal body anymore, it's about the ideal mind.
Yeah, must have said that somewhere.
That's Gaurav's quote that he doesn't remember himself.
Yeah.
But yes, it's in print.
It's in print. I do remember saying it somewhere.
So what is the ideal mind?
It's always about the ideal mind. I think we're all working towards the ideal mind. Subconsciously, collectively as a community, individually, with your partner, with your friend, with your parents, with any relationship in your life, with your own soul, you are working towards that ideal mind. And that's what we are all after. And that's what it's about. That's what the actual cool is.
How do you translate that into your work as a couturier in terms of the clients that come to you and the way you interact with them and engage with them?
I don't
and
meet
design
clients
for
anymore.
Them?
What? But I meet friends. How do I translate that? I think it's when clients come to me for a sense of the other. I think they want to be, they want to kind of, it's a bit of a fantasy situation. I think they come to me to play fancy dress, but they want to belong to a certain, they want to kind of, it's a bit like, they want to feel sexy, they want to play dress up, they want to play a different role in their life, they want to see themselves differently. And when they wear our clothes, they are playing dress up for themselves, and that is their horizon for their own understanding of their own personality and identity expands. And they tend to escape to another personality, and then that broadens their horizon. So that's how it expands. I guess it's, when you have to explore your ideal mind, you have to explore many things.
So was that similar to, or was that what you were thinking when you were designing for celebrities like Cardi B and the lot?
Cardi B has a lot of expanded things.
We have to congratulate Gaurav for a lot of international acclaim that has come in very suddenly, very recently.
Yeah, I think well, thank you. Thank you very much. It was long, it was coming at some point in my life. I always knew that. But it's been amazing working with artists, and it's kind of natural. I think even the brand is having its own moment, like the people who resonate with it, like these slightly bigger colored women who are just confident and who are just like, who like fuck the world and like, let's just, we don't care. For me, actually, what's really interesting is these are culturalists. And what I love working with culturalists. It's not just like because somebody, like I remember somebody in my marketing team saying like, oh, this person has 50 million followers or blah, 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 and we've got a request, should we dress him or dress her? I'm like, are they actually cool? It's like, are they actually doing something? Is there something, is there a cultural reference to them? Is when I get excited. So I think that's what's happening with, and Cardi B is a culturalist. She carries a new age vibe. She defies a lot of things, like how we use words, or like even Megan Thee Stallion. is they're cool culture girls, Violet Chachki or Jennifer Hudson or, so many really cool people out there.
So another quote, I don't know if you remember this. But Gaurav has said about himself that Gaurav Gupta is a mood, right? And there's a little bit of Gaurav Gupta in everybody. It's just a matter of finding that and identifying that.
What all have you been reading?
What all have you been saying?
I just say shit and they print it all. Okay.
Navki's got a good point. What have you been on?
I say anything and they write it. I'm like, why are you writing it?
So tell me, what is this mood? Who is Gaurav Gupta?
It's like all of us have everything in
How do I channel my inner Gaurav Gupta?
Wow. I'll show you later. Okay.
My parents are in the audience.
Well, as I said earlier, I think it's more about it's flirting with yourself. It's literally like, as I said, playing dress up or belonging to, I don't know, a Game of Thrones fantasy or another universe fantasy. It's like when you wear that, I describe my aesthetic a lot of times as, because it's been really hard for me to describe my own aesthetic. I describe it sometimes as future primitive. Like sometimes when you wear our clothes, you could be like you are a part of a movie because they're very theatrical. Yeah. And it could be, it's almost like costume design. But I'm actually really surprised and glad that our costume design has become mainstream. Yeah. And that's where culture shifts. So I think everybody wants to do that extra and it changes things in them. So for example, and just to tell you a naughty anecdote there, like I would have these, over these years I've seen like, when I came to India, 17 years back from London and Turkey and all of that stuff, it was all like everybody was wearing just, saris and the same lehengas which have been there, which is really beautiful. But I was like, okay, all of this is happening. Then we made the sari sexy with like making it Grecian and knotted and playing so much with it. And then I would
coined the term sari gown.
Yes. We invented the sari gown, which is now part of the mainstream fashion. Like, and then I see something on some TV channel, if you flip now, which we don't have anymore, thank God. And when you see some sari on some Indian TV serial, I'm like, what have I done? Why? Like, what have I done? This is so bad.
But tell me, you've always been you've tried to change things, right? It's become like you came back, you were frustrated with the way things were over here. Indian fashion was kind of going its own way, not really challenging you. And you took it upon yourself to change the paradigm in a certain way. Now, I don't know if it was really as definitive emotive or it was something that happened over time. But what gives you that conviction to say that I'm going to do this and I'm going to be able to do this?
It's just because I'm bored of everything else. It's just like, I don't know, it's like when you have an innate need to, I guess it's like when you want justice for truth and for design, you just do it. It's as simple as that.
Have you always been a rebel?
I don't think I'm a rebel. I am who I am.
But were you as a child?
As a child, I was really lost and dumb. I was like, I flunked my 6th standard and and then I met Navki and then I became fine. Yeah. That's
the woman behind it all.
That's the woman.
I can vouch for that, at least for the last 12 years. I've seen that.
Yeah. So exactly. So then, yes, I have been a rebel, like in the sense of, from a business family doing fashion but then I think it's just more like the limitlessness of things excites me. It could be fashion, it could be science, it could be architecture, it could be, biotechnology, it could be anything.
What was your biggest support system in all of this?
I'll keep saying Navki, but okay, support system, it's definitely my family.
You're very close to your family. Saurabh works with you.
Saurabh, who's my brother and he's my business partner, who's younger than me, but acts elder to me all the time.
Vouch for that too.
And you know that. And also it helps. Then I'm like, okay, I'm younger, sorry. and my dad and my family and just my closest friends like Anuj and like my friends. I think it's like when you have deep, true friendships, even with your family, it's what, you know, that's what life is about. So that's what supported me all throughout. And you know, they've always genuinely been not just supportive but encouraging and uplifting. You know, it's like we're all flying together. So that's what's so cool.
If I can tell the audience, Gaurav and I met 12 years ago because he was designing his first store in Delhi, and I was working for this firm called Matra, and I was the project architect for his store. So I go around very proudly saying that I designed his first store. And I've seen that. I've seen that with you and your entire sort of network, right? Where he could come in and he'd be a brat and say, oh, I dreamt of this last night and I want half a horse kind of coming out of the wall. And I want the butt and the tail in the other corner. And we're all sitting over there saying, I don't know how to make a horse, right? Or we pushed every limit that we could. We challenged everything, whether it was the contractor at site or the vendor or anyone. But it was the most harrowing experience for me, I have to say. Viren walked out of the project. I don't know if you know this or not. He's not here, so I can say it. And he left it to me and he said, you want to do it? Do it. I'm not dealing with Gaurav
anymore. I
anymore.
didn't know that at all. Yeah. He was always so sweet to me.
He was. Except for the times that he didn't turn up for the meeting. And then you'd have Saurabh who'd be kind of, you know, holding the fort. And we'd have Gaurav throwing tantrums and his father would come to the side and say, how much is this going to be? And is this really like, can we do it? Is it going to be practical? And we'd be like, yeah, it's all fine. What started off as like a 1.5-month project took us 6 months to do.
Oh, it did it?
It did.
No, okay.
But it was the most fabulous experience, I have to say. Because for me personally, it was a lot of unlearning.
Yeah.
Right? And it was a lot of challenge that you threw our way, not because you were a child throwing a tantrum, but it was a dream that you wanted realized. And I've seen that in just the way you work, whether it was in your factory or with the people around you. How on earth do you manage that? How do you challenge yourself every day, and how do you challenge everyone around you all the time?
I'm just being me. I don't know. I guess when people are around me, they're around me for that reason, to be challenged. And so they get challenged.
He's a tough cookie, clearly, to
No,
crack
but
for an
it's
interview.
like, no, but I don't know what to say. Like in the sense of,
You're constantly
I have the best
reinventing
team.
yourself.
Yeah, I think it's also, well, it's just a fact. Like I'm not able to work with experience. Like when, let's say, design students come out of college, etc. I have to only work with freshers because otherwise they're spoiled in other places. Like, you know, their brain is gone to a different direction. So they have to be working with us so that their brain is formed in a certain way. So we have become like there's a whole system around challenging.
But are you still a part of everything that happens in the studio? Because you were like that earlier,
Yeah.
right? Like you needed to be
Yeah,
a part of everything.
I was a really bad control freak, but now I've become much better. Now I think as things grow, they're structured, there are different departments, we're getting more senior people, there's, you know, team building, there's all of that kind of stuff. But I know what's happening where, and, you know, but yeah.
Like you said, you get bored easily, right?
Yeah.
And you're not happy with simple things around you.
I don't think I'm happy with anything. Even if it's the most amazing thing that we would make, I'll be like, no, but that thing was wrong. So I had to really work on the fact that, okay, like, no, okay, stop it. You know, that kind of thing. So it's like, if I notice, I've had to train my eyes and my mind to have boundaries.
And did
Yeah.
you find them?
Sometimes it's a whole situation.
Navkirat? Has he? No.
Well, boundaries in the sense of, you know, it's like if I go to a wedding and if the bride is wearing a blouse and it's like lopsided or something like that, I'll keep staring at the blouse and I'll be like, no, but that's wrong. I'm like, no, and I want to go and adjust it. And then, and I'm like, okay, I should not look there and let me get a drink. Okay. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, so now I know, okay, I don't have to do those things. I have to be normal, like a little bit.
Well, in our experience, that blouse was concrete walls hanging in your store, and you'll just be like, oh my God, what are you guys doing? But since then, you've come a long way. You've got multiple stores across the country.
Yeah, 5 now. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got what, two in Delhi, Bombay,
2 in Delhi,
Hyderabad,
1 in Bombay, Hyderabad, and Kolkata.
and Kolkata. So tell us something about your stores, because they're not regular places that you go to shop at. They're adventures in themselves, right? They're like these whimsical fantasies of their own, and there's a very specific intent for why they are like that.
Yeah, and you know, you want to give people the whole experience. So it is, and we anyways challenge how people think of fashion. So we wanted to challenge how they think of space. And I'm really excited about the new project that we'll do. And we keep wanting to do that in different ways as we've done these 5 stores. In fact, our Emporio store got nominated as one of the best 5 stores in the world at World Architecture, WAF Awards.
World Architecture Festival, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And they are very like, I don't know, I don't like malls. I don't like how everything looks the same, you know, Dubai kind of feeling, etc. Or like that, you know, there's a certain aesthetic and certain lighting and certain situations. So you know, when we challenge norms or cultural norms as well, or reference norms, we just challenge those norms even in space design. And interestingly, in this conversation, I don't like to have any references. So the reference is, we don't have mood boards. I don't have mood boards for anything. So and that's something that I actually learned at St. Martin's, that you cannot have any references because that's somebody else's thought process. You have to have your own thought process. That's only when something original will come out.
But there's always a sense of theatrics in your work, right? And spatial theatrics, even in your shows, for example.
Yeah.
All your shows have had this very spatial quality. It's not just models walking down the ramp. It's this whole experience of how they occupy space.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me add, he's had this massive mushroom. Yeah.
We just had this, like we had about 50 models walking on water, and we had like 100 feet waterfall, which was all repurposed because that collection was inspired by when I went diving we went diving in January in Andamans, and I was so obsessed with it. It all comes from obsession. We went for a week, we ended up staying for 3 weeks, and I ended up being an advanced diver, and now I'm like, okay, wow, I'm lost there now. So that show, and then but then we saw plastic in the ocean, etc. And then I figured I wanted to make a statement and actually try and make couture out of wrappers of biscuits and chips from the ocean, which is woven into fabric, and we made clothes out of that. So I was like, you know, so for me, and even our packaging comes from repurposed, from PET plastic, basically, landfills.
You also have a zero wastage initiative in your studio.
Yeah, so now what we're doing is even the wastage that happens with the fabric, even that fabric gets woven into new fabric. So there are these practices that, you know, I think it's, for all of us, it's about relative sustainability. I know we can't be like, you know, like perfect zero carbon footprint, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
But as long as we are working towards it, from a small, you know, even like what soap are you buying? How much water are you using? Am I washing my towel every day? Or am I putting it in the wash? All of these little, I'm not going to buy a plastic bottle even if I'm thirsty. Like, you know, it's these things. It has to reflect in your life.
You know, what's also refreshing is that a lot of your values and beliefs are actually translated into the work that you're doing, right? Like, for example, you feel very strongly about sustainability and therefore you bring that out in your work. There are a lot of people who would probably segregate their professional lives and the work that they produce from their beliefs, but you've been very public and very vocal about your advocacies, right? Whether it was LGBTQ rights or
Yeah.
women's rights or
We did a
all of
party with
that.
Jay sitting there with an anti-pollution riot campaign. So I just feel like, yeah, I feel like when you are kind of a public figure and you have, when people are calling you for interviews, etc. I think it's when you can add purpose to it.
Do you feel that you have a responsibility as a public figure to do that?
Everybody has a responsibility with or without being a public figure, and when you are a public figure you have a bigger responsibility, so I will sit at home and get really frustrated that people are like dying without oxygen in India, and public figures are not doing enough about it. So there is obviously, as public figures, one has that responsibility.
And you did the elephant project with the animal ball.
Yeah, that was fun.
That
And you
was-
can make purpose and have so much fun with it. It's the best thing.
It is.
Yeah.
But
Animal
that's what
Ball
you-
was so cool.
you-
And it was like, but I forgot to meet Prince Charles because I was
You
just sitting with,
forgot?
yeah, because the thing is, I
What
was
were
just
you
sitting-
on?
I was just sitting with Vivienne Westwood in a corner and only talking about climate change. And that for me was such a high. We were talking for 3 hours and we were like, you have to do this, but Greta is doing this and this is happening and this is that is happening.
You want to tell us a little more about your other initiatives? You did the anti-pollution campaign,
Anti-pollution, yeah,
the
that
riot.
was- so
where you
that
created
was,
masks and
so yeah, we
t-shirts.
created masks and t-shirts. But it was just about like, I think people, what was frustrating me then was like, okay, with Paris, pollution levels would go to like not even 50 or something like that, 100. And they would be like riots on the street. They would be like marches. They'll be like, people will stop taking the tube. There'll be like all of that thing. And in Delhi, it'll go to 1,000. And which is like, it's like chemical warfare. And people, I was like, why aren't people doing something about it? Why isn't it an emergency? Like, just because, for me that was the most disturbing thing, that people are not even talking about it enough to then start finding solutions around it. So, that was like an awareness campaign. Yeah, so that was that. What other initiative? I don't know.
No, but what is interesting is that you got a lot of other celebrities involved as well, right? When you distributed the masks and the t-shirts. And
Yeah.
this idea of, and again, I'm paraphrasing you from an article which I thought was interesting, because you said that people are anyway looking at celebrities, right? And they're kind of admiring them and seeing what they're doing and all of that. Why don't you add a layer to that and actually extract something that's meaningful from it?
Yeah, of course. See, we live in a celebrity culture, and we've always, we've always kind of lived in a celebrity culture. If earlier, like maybe 500 years back, it would be like, oh, the noble or the kings and this and that, and they were the celebrities, or courtesans would have been. But I'm saying like, so you always, but if you can add purpose to that, it's the best thing. You're getting best of both the things.
Yep. I'm going to shift a little bit. I want to know what your house is like.
My house is simple. Nafki and I was struggling because we always look at art. Actually, that is interesting. We always look at art and we like, will we be able to live with it? And we don't end up buying art ever, because we have blank walls everywhere, because we need that space to think, and it's like, if it's there and then we have to live with it. So it's like, we just have, everything is monotonal, and it's like it's a peaceful space.
Where's that half horse?
But that half horse comes out in stores and comes out in different places.
So you like your madness in bits and pieces, in small doses.
I don't know. I think I'm working towards sophisticated madness.
Sophisticated madness.
Yeah. It's all about that.
What is that?
Like just refined madness.
Tell me more.
Yeah,
I'm intrigued.
it says it all.
Madness with a glass of wine.
A glass of wine. It's just madness with some purpose, or just like, it's just turning up the volume. It's like how much more you can take it, but still doing it with finesse. It's like, it's the richness in there, the richness of thought and execution both.
What grounds you?
Love and friends and my friends and my family. That's it. Like, what else grounds people? Or Yeah, and the support that I have. Yeah, if I am grounded, I don't know.
Another thing which is at the tip of a lot of tongues is how do you strike your work-life balance? Because I've known of you to kind of take off, like you yourself said, right? You went to the Andamans for a week and you stayed for 3 weeks, and the fact that you can actually do that.
That was during the pandemic, so I could do it
Okay.
then. I
That's an
don't think I can do
exception.
it right now. Yeah, it was. I was just.
But you take time off for yourself. You go off, you travel, you go on
Sometimes.
your
I think
retreats.
I also tend to kind of mix the two. Like, okay, if you're going somewhere, then we can extend it, or yeah, I think the pandemic has taught all of us a lot of good stuff about this balance, and yeah, just one just has to do it, because when you're on so much speed, there's like 5 people handling your schedule, and this is happening, that is happening, and blah blah blah, and you have to be in 5 different cities, and whatever, so many things, and calls and Zoom calls from cars, and this and that and the other. Then you have to be able to, like, whatever it takes. Like, if you need to keep a meditation teacher, or if you need to keep, if you need to go for a retreat after 4 months, I think the pandemic has taught us to take out time for yourself.
Pause and reflect.
Yeah, just take out time for yourself, and then you reflect every day anyways.
And what's next for Gaurav Gupta?
Many things, which
You've got your fingers in multiple pies.
Yeah.
And I know a few more that you're exploring, which I
Yeah.
won't talk about right now.
Well, I don't
know if I'm allowed
We're
to.
expanding our store bases, retail bases. There's a lot of interesting stuff that we'll be doing in the metaverse situation. Yeah, that is a very exciting space, and I don't think people in India are looking at it properly till now. There's a lot of international things on the international horizon. Obviously, there's a whole plan behind this whole Oscars moment and the Cardi B moment, etc., etc. There'll be many more moments and many more things coming up. So that itself is very action-packed right now. There's a lot of expansion on our menswear. There's new, bigger stores coming up, and I don't know. And there are some other creative projects which I can't talk about right now.
Sorry, Sonia, I tried. We need another drink over here, then maybe.
This is non-alcoholic gin, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. It's perfect.
that might be different.
Yeah. So, yeah. What else?
But I'm actually going to open up to the floor if anybody has anything else to ask.
Oh, what have we got? I'm going to come back.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Vivek. Hey, Gaurav.
Hey.
My name is Sharad. We met earlier.
Yes.
Very interesting about the whole sustainability bit and your work around that. But my question is more around, we're going to dwell a bit sort of deeper. What's your brand purpose?
Is to shake up things. Is to my brand purpose is to challenge minds and for everyone to think deeper. Yeah.
We got another question.
Yes, hi, over there. I'm Sumit Gaurav.
Hi.
Thank you so much, two of you. It's been a beautiful evening so far. So, Gaurav, my question is like, are you like the Gaurav Gupta 24 hours, or do you have to work for it? Because everyone as Mrinal.
I think Nafki should
I'm
answer
so sorry.
that. I
Yeah.
don't know.
So, everyone has a little bit of Gaurav Gupta, but as far as you are concerned, are you like 24 hours the Gaurav Gupta, or you have to work for it? First question. Second, how's this getting evolved? Where is this Gaurav Gupta going so that it can, take the lesser mortals to the journey of the clothes, and so that they can be more of what they are not realizing they are? Two questions. Yes,
Oh,
thank you.
God, I think he's being a little sarcastic. Okay, fine.
Do you want an actual gin now?
Can I get a drink? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think I am myself all the time. Like, I think, to answer that question, initially, when I was forming a brand and an image over initial years of my career, let's say, I think one has certain ideas how one should be, how one should behave, how, like, I would feel socially awkward a lot of times, and I'd be like, you don't even get to know, like, when you're becoming quite known as a person, you don't know who's genuinely your friend, who's not, etc. Especially in social, these kind of things. So that's where you start thinking and you're realizing nobody prepares you for attention in life, right? Nobody prepares you for fame, nobody prepares you for all of that. And I have friends who are obviously much, much more famous than I am, and I learn from them and I understand how they deal with all of that. So yes, there is so I earlier used to have a bit, I think that line between what is a public Gaurav Gupta and a private GG is blurring quite a bit, because I am becoming more and more comfortable with public and with people, yeah, so I think that's what's happening, and it just happens over time, and then when one is confident and one is successful relatively financially as well as in their work, etc., etc., and as you grow in your brand and everything you are doing is resulting into something good, then you're more comfortable with it. Then you don't need to try too hard to be anything. Then you know that, okay, you're having a natural dialogue with yourself and with the world. So then the lines blur. Then you become yourself to the world as well. And what was the second question? Second part was, where is this going? So where is this going? So where is this going is he's still bored. So he's just wants to keep challenging and keeps, it's like turning up the volume more and more and more and more. He wants to go into infinite loops of craziness. It could be, it could be in anything. It could be in movies. It could be in architecture. It's like, where else could you, it's like, it could go anywhere. It's just, wherever it gets excited. It's like a little child.
Lovely. Thank you.
I have a question. So, Gaurav, thank you for being here. Mrinalini, thanks for for moderating the conversation. Gaurav and I have become recent friends, and I think good friends, and we always have good conversations. So it took a conversation to bring you here. So I'm glad we finally got you here. So I have a question regarding inclusivity, and you talked about it, and I think while it was a statement while you were growing up, I'm saying we're all still growing up, but while you were making an impact with your fashion, today when I see our kids, inclusivity is a much bigger deal than it ever was.
Yeah.
When
like 51 new genders right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how does that impact design going forward? Or does it?
It definitely does. I think it affects brains. It affects culture. When culturally things change, so now we have come a long way from not accepting pink shirts on men, for example, to them wearing draped kurtas or draped shirts, etc. So that's where it obviously affects design. And it's like design and culture play table tennis with each other all the time. So it's literally like, okay, this is my serve, I'm saying this to you. And that's exactly what's happened with me and my brand. I sometimes feel like I've played table tennis with my clients. I'm like, this is how much I can push you. They're like, this is how much I can take. So it's the inclusivity part of it is like, today there's, I don't think, for example, today there could be anybody dressed up as anyone in here, and we would not think twice about it. So it's
an acceptance, basically.
It's acceptance. It's not just acceptance. It's in a way that acceptance has a bit of celebration in it. That itself has that. It's an acceptance at a So that it definitely affects design. As I said, it's always a dialogue. It's a constant dialogue between culture and design. And design, I mean, it could be art, dance, music, architecture, fashion, podcasts. It could be anything. So then it starts blurring, and it all influences each other.
If I may add, I think when you talk about design in a larger sort of sphere, it makes it more democratic. I think that's definitely a thing. But to sort of extend what you were saying earlier about men wearing pink shirts and being acceptable today, last night I heard from somebody that
No, it's more an American thing. I think India,
Yeah.
we've always had like,
because
wearing-
India celebrates color, right, in
and also,
general.
like, exactly.
But last night, I was talking to somebody and they said their son works in Google in London, and he has two colleagues who believe that they're cats. So they dress up as cats, right, with the ear and the whiskers and the tail and everything. And they go to work every day dressed up as cats. But
I'm not expanding on this conversation at all.
I'm just saying, Google is accepting that.
This is too little, too late. So I have met furries. They are called furries. I've been to furry parties in London, and it was really interesting. So I have these friends who just take me to places, and then I was there as a
This
student.
suddenly seems like a very boring evening now.
So then there are these people who believe they're half animal, half human, and they sometimes have cat moustache implanted in them or a tiger tail implanted in them, etc., etc. And some of them are that extreme, and some of them I had to wear just rabbit ears to get into that party. Like, just, it was cutesy kind of thing. But then they come to you like this and go like, come here. So it's totally. So there are these different. It's like for me, there's so many different. It's like they're exploring a different side to themselves.
But what I find fascinating is your so-called private side, right? While you're doing it at parties. But here, if an organization like Google is accepting them,
yeah. So today,
that's a
what
whole
is amazing
different
is
level.
that there's transgender people in the Senate. In US, and today there is that form in India as well as a gender male, female, and X.
Yes.
So even in India, and India is one of the 7 countries to do that. So there is a lot of change happening from where women were not supposed to vote. Even how many years was it? 7? I don't know. 100? What? 40? 45 years ago. Just now. No, America. Wow. Just imagine. So imagine from where we were and where we are
But
now and
things are
how
changing every
things are
day.
changing. And
Yeah.
what is happening is this is where human consciousness as together we expand our minds, and it's just like, okay, fine. But and then there will be it's a constant fight between good and evil. It's the
But
yin and yang.
That's culture, right? Culture grows. And
Yeah.
it has to advance on a daily level.
Yeah. Culture is like a river, it has to flow.
We had another question here.
Hi.
I'm Vishal, and it's been fun to listen to you. I have a question, something from the fashion side.
Yeah.
So, what would make a normal color plus or a zodiac, into a fashionable GG or a fashionable a white color plus or zodiac, as lame as they get,
Yeah.
into something fashionable and GG?
I'm not understanding you. What do you mean?
What I mean is this,
If someone can't afford GG and they have a zodiac, how do they make it into a GG?
yeah, correct. I mean, from the perspective of how do you change that? How do you change the fashionable thing?
It's the way you style it. It's just you just believe it's GG, and then it'll be GG.
Channelize your inner Gaurav Gupta.
It's all about belief. There's so many fakes of mine getting sold right now, and they all believe it's GG. Okay.
We have another question here.
Another question?
Right here.
Thank you. There you go. Thanks. Thank you for this wonderful conversation, Mrinalini and Gaurav. That
Thank
was
you.
really interesting. I'm old enough, much older than you, Gaurav.
No age references anymore.
Okay, but my question is about culture, and you said, and I thought that was a lovely line where you said culture and design sort of playing ping pong with each other, right? And then you said, okay, this is my serve. But growing up, my question is about how we grew up with people like, Pupul Jekar, who talked about fabric. And I remember one story where she said that weavers used to weave 600 variations of grey. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe that was, somewhat of an exaggeration, but you get the point.
There is, I think in the weave there itself, there are a billion colors if you give it to Pantone. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so my question is that when you look at, when you look at India, or you look at sort of people walking on the streets, how do you respond to that? A lot of, say, women wearing polyester saris, and for practical reasons.
Polyester really killed, like that's why I think sorry.
No, so the question is that when obviously designs evolve, things evolve, my sister will wear a sari, I won't, something, things like that, which is fine.
Yeah.
But how do you respond to these, it's not a culture war, but it's, I don't want to use the word evolution, but how are you responding to sort of on the streets, these sort of waves that...
You're talking...
And I mean, why is it that, do you use fabric, do you use, I can see that's really beautiful silhouettes in this film, but what do you use for, say, everyday wear or, which is not perhaps couture?
I do mostly, I'm an evening wear couture designer. I don't have a ready-to-wear line right now. But we do use like repurposed, we're looking at using more and more PET plastic fabric. So in the sense of if it's polyester which has been used as fabric or in plastic bottles, etc., crushing it, making into new fabric and repurposing that. So these are newer ways that the world is discovering now to fight the oil lobby or the polyester lobby, which has really ruined Indian fashion as well. When you talk about polyester saris, it really pains me as well. Because yes, you have such beautiful cotton, khadi, silks in India. It's so beautiful that I don't understand why do people need to wear polyester saris. So because it's at the same time, I understand that there is I think there needs to be a cultural revolution which has a sustainable backbone to it, especially in India, where there is where people are working with weavers, where they are working with it's a whole ecosystem which is like, let's say, a Gandhian school of thought, which would be perfect. But let's say me as an artist, my own work, I have I am doing my bit and what I can do in it.
Yeah.
It's not necessary that I have to do
Sure.
that. But I'm really interested, and I am starting to work on Indian textiles as well. But I want to see, and what frustrates me there is the unorganized part of it, and that is the biggest challenge there. That is, that's what we are all trying. That's where it gets lost, and it's a conversation I'm having with you. And that is where I have been frustrated. That I wish it was organized enough for me to go and say and do it okay, let's do this, and we are able to do it, and they're able to meet the timelines, and there is a whole world out there. There's a whole system.
So something to challenge you, perhaps.
Yeah, for sure. That challenge, it's there.
If I may extend what you're saying, is that so fashion and design is kind of evolving, right? It's ever evolving. But while on one hand, you've got very exclusive fashion where you are trying your best to do what you're doing. You're working with sustainability and you're channeling this, reusing material, repurposing material and doing all of that. On the other hand, there is this parallel evolution of fashion which is going into this polyester market. While people are doing that because they need to, because it's a mass market, because it's cheaper.
No, but today there is H&M is also doing sustainable clothes, and so is Zara is forced to do it.
We're still talking about people who have certain means.
You mean talk about the
right?
real mass situation?
Yeah. And there's a massive gap between the two, right?
But that,
which needs to...
But that is an economic conversation, yeah.
So, my little bit is that unfortunately, as much as like what you said is true, that there is this onslaught of polyester around the country, but the problem is, in my eyes, that as much as we all speak about using natural fibers, cotton being the most important because it is so hot in our country, sorry to say this, but there is no way to make this fabric cheap for the masses to use. There are no policies in our country,
The thing
as
is, that's what I was
sad
gonna say.
as it is.
It has to be the government.
There are no
It's-
policies, and I have spoken about this a number of times, and as much as, I mean, we're part of the same board, etc., etc. But what are we doing?
Basically,
we're
the
not doing
problem is-
anything about creating the fiber to be cheaper. What is the we
in
were supposed
France
to do?
and in Italy, the government, or even in America, the government works with fashion, works with the textile industry, and works at the grassroots level. They know which printers are there in Como, and they'll support them if there's a problem, even in pandemic, etc., etc. Here, it's just, you know, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this in front of camera, but you know what I'm saying.
A lot of it is
doesn't end up.
greenwashing.
It doesn't.
I
Yeah,
think.
it just goes. It gets lost. So and it is policy, and fashion is not really supported by the government in any way. So they don't see it as an important enough. Yeah, that's the
If
that's
there
the
are-
biggest pity.
if there are
especially with
subsidies
this country where we have
for our
such
natural
a-
fibers, it would
so
make
much
all the
wealth
difference.
Of, you know, of everything.
Maybe the textile ministry should look into this soon enough.
Oh, thank you.
H&M as a brand is, in India, is still, you would call it luxury. Not for people in this room maybe, where it's mass market, but for majority of the Indians, even H&M.
I have a question. Can I ask? Yes.
And as the land is, you know, agriculture is sort of depleting and you know, because less land, organic cotton and stuff like that is going to be more,
Expensive, yeah.
because the good stuff is being exported.
Yeah, it's an economic. This is an economic conversation, basically. Yeah.
Can I ask the last question?
Yes.
What's the source of your happy energy?
This is part
She's gonna hit me later. I'm telling you.
This is only part one of the conversation. Part two of this conversation is when Navkeeta takes the chair.
Yeah. My source of happy energy is, I don't know. I think we have sunshine hearts. Like when you have sunshine hearts, you're just happy. And when you genuinely don't let ill feelings come inside you, you just are always happy. When you've learnt everything from Tom and Jerry.
Beautiful.
Touche to that.
Thank you.
I think on that very happy note, we're opening the bar. Yes, the bar's open.
Yay!
We should all get a drink.
Let's get a drink.
But thank you all for being here, being a fabulous audience, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Gaurav.
Thank you.